Hello and welcome to this. It is the EggChasers Rugby podcast, the podcast about rugby doesn't take itself, or indeed the game, too seriously. I'm JB, in the Rugby Dungeon with Phil. Hello, Phil.
Hello, JB.
And down the line, in his Greek shipping container, Tim Cocker. How are we?
Very well, gentlemen. The home of shipping containers.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, bit of feedback. The home of shipping containers. Wow.
And
I'm
looking
accolade.
out as I talk to you now on the Gulf of Messini as it just reaches out into the Ionian Sea.
Beautiful.
If I headed directly south from where I am, I'd be in Libya.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Fantastic.
Edgy.
You going to go for a little swim, maybe?
Yeah, due south, yeah.
So, I've only ever told my wife she can't go to one place ever.
Dubai?
Nope.
Riyadh?
Nope.
Didsbury Tock H Rugby Club on a Saturday evening?
Yes. Nope. She wanted, ridiculously, to go to Libya to do some medicine on people, which is the most stupid thing I have ever heard in my entire life. I was like, no, you cannot do that. Absolutely no, under any circumstances can you go to Libya.
That does sound a bit dicey.
Doesn't it just?
Slightly dicey.
Although, I'd love to go at some point. And the other place I'd love to go in the Middle East is Lebanon.
Lebanon would be pretty cool.
Lebanon's going to be awesome.
Lebanon would be cool.
They got to the final of the Tag Rugby World Championships.
And
Did they?
Well,
they've got a lot of Aussies, haven't they? Or there's
Yeah.
a lot of Aussies of Lebanese descent.
yeah, there is like a basically there is a suburb in Sydney which has got lots of Lebanese in, and that's how the Lebanese rugby league team operates.
Yes. That microphone, is it on and picking stuff up? Because we're getting a lot of squeaking.
Yes, I think it is, and now it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
And we're
Is
still
that
all okay?
my usual microphone?
It is.
It's
There you go.
incredibly lonely, Tim, on the table on its own without you here to caress it.
Yeah. Well, do you know who will be feeling incredibly lonely for the rest of this weekend?
The Leinster squad.
Leinster squad and fans. Well. You can deny reality, but you can't deny the consequences of denying reality.
And I do think that quote is quite apt, because I think as soon as I saw that squad, I thought hubris is going to bite them.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
It really, really did. They played a second string team.
They're idiots. They are idiots.
They played a second string team because they've got the fear of playing 3 competitive games in a row.
I know.
And so they refuse to do that with these seasoned international. They've got a squad of, they've got, I don't know, 24 international players, and they couldn't trust the best ones of them to play 3 consecutive weeks in a row.
It's so stupid, isn't it? And do you know what? There's only so many times you can disrespect a team like Munster. There's only so many times that you can beat them. You know, they're going to become good at some point. I mean, it's a very proud club, incredibly proud fans. What were they expecting? I mean, imagine if your greatest rival decides to play a second-string team
In a semi-final.
against you. They deserve everything that they get.
Your team talk is the easiest thing in the world. I don't know if you've seen, Tim or Jay, the Graham Roundtree post-match interview
I haven't.
on RTE. It is worth watching. It's on Twitter. It's worth watching because he comes across as incredibly likeable, incredible detail man. Yeah, fantastic guy, fantastic rugby guy. But it was just really, really enjoyable to watch, knowing how Munster would have prepared, knowing that Leinster were putting that team out.
It's not like Munster are rubbish. You know, they're not going to, I don't know, Italy to play. No, they're not playing the Border Reivers.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's just ludicrous. So, one of the things which Leinster have really got to ask themselves, and the coaching team, everyone seems to think Stuart Lancaster is a god, right? And maybe one of the reasons he didn't get England right, and maybe one of the reasons a lot of international coaches don't succeed, is because international is all about your team selection. You've got the best players, just pick the right team, and that'll be fine. All he needs to do is pick the right team. That's all he needs to do. He's got one job every year.
No,
One job every year.
This is where I think it's interesting, because his obviously attributing no success to any one individual, but collectively, that Leinster coaching setup is excellent. They are getting the best out of the players, but they got it totally wrong in the team selection this week.
Genuinely, right? Me, you and Tim, together.
We would have picked the right team.
Could we run Leinster, broadly speaking, as well as they've been run? I think we probably could.
I think we'd manage a few successful years, but maybe the decline would eventually start to...
Yeah, we'd have won equal amounts of URC titles over the last 2 years.
The devil's advocate position here is that the URC doesn't matter and pales into complete insignificance next to that fifth star. And if next week Leinster are celebrating a Champions Cup victory,
but do you know,
this weekend will not matter. However, if they lose the Champions Cup final as well, oh my goodness!
Yeah, could you imagine?
Yes, it happened last year,
and this year, it's basically a coin toss as well. It is just the next week's game is a coin toss. This week's game, they could have probably changed, I don't know, 4 or 5 players and won 80% of the time, but they didn't.
It just blows my mind how they've messed this up. You've only got a handful of games to win, and you've got the best squad in the world. And realistically, I mean, this might be the best. This is the difference, right? Between actually no, I'll save that analogy for the end of this sentence instead, right? So people talk about how great it is to see underdogs rise to the top and win. Mm-hmm. Right, and that's a cool story. We all have seen it, or like the unknown guy just show up and become a star. We love those narratives.
Yes.
One of the most underrated narratives, though, are the teams that are really good and they actually pull off what they're meant to do. And I think that is a really special thing. So what I was going to say is this is the difference between Leinster and how great they are and someone like the Crusaders, who actually materially did stuff year after year after year. And in fairness, Saracens too.
Saracens did it. Exeter's amazing year when they got the double was genuinely amazing. Toulouse have done it incredibly. But it's a good point. Leinster, every year they should win the URC because they have got undoubtedly the best squad. They've got the most expensive squad, perhaps the most expensive squad if they were all to go on the open market in the world.
Yes.
Because they've got 24 international players. No one else in World Rugby can boast that many stars. And so they should be winning. They should be Heineken Cup final every year, or semi-final minimum, but they should be winning the URC every year. And they're not. And this year, they have the squad. They've got almost everyone fit and in form. And their own hubris, their own arrogance is what cost them.
And also arrogance from a guy in Stuart Lancaster who's renowned for being humble.
Well, we don't know who the selection sat with.
Yeah, he's part of that setup, right?
He's a senior coach, but ultimately,
and it's not all his fault. I'm just saying,
the buck stops with Leo Cullen.
Yeah,
because he is director of rugby. He's the top guy.
I just think the juxtaposition from the humbleness we write on our t-shirts. We're going to pick a second team squad to play Munster. It is a bit jarring, those contrasting positions.
Mm. Did you see any of the game?
I saw the highlights.
Yes.
In fact, I saw the highlights several times. I found some 30-minute ones. I want to see the whole game.
Before we get into the substance of the game, can I bring up one other thing that you were talking about?
Yeah, of course.
Post-match interviews. Graham Roundtree's got a very simple build-up chat. Obviously, the chance to win a trophy for Munster's huge, but did you see Stormers, the video of people at the ground at the Stormers watching the end of the Leinster-Munster game?
No, I've not seen that, but I imagine they were celebrating.
They were celebrating wildly that Munster won.
Yeah, well,
obviously that means because they get to play a game at home.
Yes, that is half of it. And from what I saw of the Stormers game, the crowd looked awesome there. Like that is a proper party town with a big crowd, rugby-loving crowd. So that is cool.
So, so they get to play the finals the URC finals in South Africa again.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
Cape Town.
Careful what you wish for with these South Africans. Let's let them into our competition, see how they do. Whoops.
Stormers will be heavy favourites in this.
Yeah, they're
partly
good.
because they have got an international team. They've certainly got an international front row.
But just show Peter O'Mahony that video of them celebrating
Good point.
Munster winning.
Yeah.
And yeah.
God, the ORC, I keep going back to it. We were so wrong about the South Africans. I mean, I think we were right on certain points, but without doubt it has added some real quality to this whole competition. And added dimension that all these teams just sort of used to cruise the URC. And I think there is still far too much cruising and throwing away games and all the rest of it. I think there's a lot of that still to be ironed out.
Yeah, hardly anyone takes their property, except for this final that Munster are playing. Hardly anybody takes a proper team to South Africa.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's a good point.
But the South Africans are legitimately good teams. I mean, look how many made the knockouts in the European Cup.
Yeah.
Really good teams. It's great to see, actually, because Super Rugby wasn't doing it for South Africans. They couldn't retain their players, but now they're superpowers.
They really are.
And I think all the judgment on this weekend for Leinster, it either gets completely zeroed and eradicated, or it gets magnified to a huge degree by what happens next weekend.
They know that they're bottlers.
The pressure is massively on them next weekend. They have to win that. You're right, Tim. If they win that, everyone kind of overlooks what happened yesterday against Munster. I think they do, because they get the 5th star. They will all be celebrating that. If they lose, which is, in my mind, a coin toss, it will be a disaster of a season for Leinster.
La Rochelle are turning into European royalty every bit as majestic as Leinster.
And they've got a Munsterman at the helm.
And he knows they're weak. I mean, he said it on... Was it him or was it... It was Wigglesworth, sorry, that said it. Well, if they were that good, they might have won it in the last 11 years. They can't be that heavy favourites. So it's not inevitable. And La Rochelle are bloody good. And they're smart. I mean, they've been through every type of Premiership team that there is to go through. From... Oh, no, they didn't go through Leicester, did they? But they did Saracens, they did Exeter, and they did Gloucester. And they all played very differently. And the best one by far was Saracens, because Saracens, for the first time, maybe second time, because I think the first time I saw them comprehensively outcoached was the final against Leicester last year. But La Rochelle were comprehensively better than Saracens tactically. And you never see that.
Yeah, that is rare.
So they'll be ready. They'll absolutely be ready. It's going to be an awesome final.
Just on the game, I was going to just mention a couple of points. One, the disallowed Ryan Baird try, which I absolutely loved.
Now, why was it disallowed?
It was a knock-on from the...
it was, yes.
Was it one of the O'Brien boys? Knocked it. He tried to knock it back. It was a bit... In real time, it looked like he knocked it against the Munster... I want to say Omani, but I can't actually remember. Man who was going up for it as well. But he did knock it forward, so I think it was right to disallow it. But it was awesome seeing a second row goose step and then go round a fullback.
He's got some wheels.
That was class. And the end of the game, I thought for Kieran Crowley to step up, get himself in that position with not much.
Jason Crowley.
Sorry. Jason Crush. Is it Jason or Jack?
Kieran Crowley's the Italian coach, isn't he?
Sorry.
His dad, perhaps? I don't know.
The Italian coach he's a Kiwi, isn't he?
Yeah.
Let's say Jack Crowley.
Jack
Crowley.
Jack Crowley.
Jason Jack.
Yes.
Got there in the end.
Jack Crowley, not Italian coach playing 12 for Munster. Jack Crowley. Back in the pocket, but not really deep in the pocket to take a snap drop goal like that. Fair play, because that was awesome.
Yeah, they're up against the Stormers, but yeah, both the finals coming up are going to be awesome. In fact, all three of the finals coming up are going to be awesome. Probably the Premiership final is the least exciting of all three, which I didn't think I'd say.
When are we going to talk about the London Sevens that happened this weekend?
Oh, shall we do that now? Because it's actually,
well, can I just mention a couple of tiny bits from the Stormers game? Because I thought,
please, Phil.
Yeah. I thought it was an entertaining game. I thought Mac Hansen was awesome for Connacht, which I don't like saying because he's in the Iron Squad ahead of my boys, but Balakoon in particular. But I thought he was class. But some of the Stormers' talent is absolutely outrageous. Libok, who scored 2 tries,
He's ace.
kicked 5 conversions, crossfield kicks, controlling the game. He's just absolutely ace. Davids the winger was class, and Diamani, he was wearing 7. I'm not sure if he was the open side or blind side, but he's a big, strong boy. He was class throughout, and his offload for, I think it was the final try, was awesome. So Stormers are a hell of a team, and when you've got that, it's got to be the best club front row in world rugby, La Rochelle and Leinster included.
Oof.
In Kitsoff, Joseph Dweber and Franz Malherbe.
Well, you say that. The 2 props are of some quality. Joseph Dweber can scrummage and run, and he's a monster. He does have some... he's a bit of a liability when it comes to line-out time. But other than that, yeah. I mean, they're big. They are big.
They're enormous. So fair play to the Stormers, and it does look like they are going to win.
Back-to-back titles.
Back-to-back. Undefeated, 100% record in the URC.
Not bad at all, is it? Not bad at all.
Quite something.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was the Army Navy at Twickenham yesterday, but it turns out it's the London Sevens yesterday, and I had no idea about this. Thank goodness for journalism letting me know.
This is worrying, to put it mildly. So, journalists... In fact, I've got a few things to say about journalists this week. But the way he's written this article, I have no problem with the actual content. Which is...
you should probably fill in the gaps for anyone that hasn't seen this, because it's...
So this is an article from Stephen Jones, and it is the headline is "How Sevens Became a Joyless Party Damaging Rugby. This overcomplicated and overcoached sport is now in danger of disappearing into its own conceit." I agree with all of that. Sevens is a little bit like Eurovision, gaudy, fun, blah, blah, blah. Things. Yesterday at Twickenham, nearly 50,000 people were expected for the London leg of the HSBC Sevens. Luckily, they didn't go, because if they did, they'd have missed it. The London leg of the HSBC Sevens is next
weekend.
So, I don't mind the content of what he's writing here. I think it's a good article to be writing. It's nice and controversial, nice and opinionated. But you cannot write about something with the sort of implication that you were there and experienced it. And that's the problem. It trashes all of his credibility.
Yeah, saying that there's 50,000 were expected, but there was only 25,000 attend today for the finals. Like, he's just fabricating things. Like, he's just making stuff up to suit the narrative that he has predetermined.
Now, for a journalist, that traditionally would have that'd be a death of a career, and it should be a death of a career, because you've been caught making stuff up. And if your credibility is important, I mean, look, I'm a podcaster. My credibility is not important. If I get things wrong, fine. It just doesn't matter, right? Because our brand is not the Times of London, and it is not predicated on us being right about things that we write, and also being honest. I mean, quite frankly, quite often I'll be dishonest. But, when your brand is about honesty and integrity, I think he has to be fired for this. I really mean that. And I think the editor needs to be fired for this.
When I thinking about it, my first reaction was, did he put the wrong date on it? Like, is he preemptively doing this for next week? Or is he kind of losing it? But then, as an editor, read this and thought, God, I don't like that Stephen Jones anyway. Let's just let him let him get away, let him put it out there, and whatever happens to him happens to him.
There's a round of redundancies coming anyway. I never liked the guy. Yeah, throw it up there.
I'm going to devil's advocate it again, as I did with Leinster, and I'm going to say that, as you've already pointed to, JB, actually, the thrust of what he said, whilst it was said before a single ball has been passed or kicked or whatever, I actually agree that Sevens is a distraction and not a complementary partner of the 15-a-side game.
Completely agree.
I have no issue. Rugby somewhat.
I have no issue with the actual content of what you like, the thrust of the piece. I mean, that wouldn't be my point. I was out for coffee with a friend of mine who was a captain in the Marines, and like for him, part of his thing is like you need to be credible, and little things matter. So if you're willing to cheat on the little things, like what what about the big things, and what does it say about your integrity? And I think that is a huge issue for Stephen Jones in this whole thing.
Well, in the substance of this article, was the attempt made to pretend he was there?
I think it was
writing
actually
on the basis of what happened.
He's writing on the basis of what happened because he's saying, well, this is verbatim. Yesterday at Twickenham, nearly 50,000 were expected for the London leg of the HSBC World Sevens. What is more, Twickenham say they expect 25,000 to attend today. Now, he's not saying he was there, but he is making statements as if something has happened, as if this is a real thing that happened.
The implication is like he's experienced this
instead.
and he doesn't. I mean, he can write this article, can't he, just with his past experience of sevens?
He can write the...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The article's fine.
So
but
he could
the
write...
implication he was...
That first paragraph, all he would need to do is to say... next week, there are expected to be 50,000 people.
Yeah.
And full stop. And then continue to write everything that he's going to write in that article.
Oh, I'm actually going to defend him a little bit and say that he could have... that he's already got his decision made about sevens, irrespective of what happened at that particular sevens tournament. So he could have written it a week before and filed it next weekend, and it would have been just as fine.
Yeah, I part of me does suspect that's what he was intending to do. And he'd probably just look back at the last 5 years of records.
I guess there's a little bit here where when you it's like the way you conduct yourself can end up by...
Can I just say it wasn't meant to be filed next week because there's a direct link to Eurovision.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It was meant to go out that day. He just doesn't know he hasn't got a clue what's going on. The editor hasn't got a clue what's going on. And the sinister bit is the implication that he experienced something about that sevens, which...
Here's my point. Had Alex Lowe or Will Kelleher or Rob Kitson filed this article, people would have gone, "Oops, oh god,
No.
he got his date. He got his date mixed up. Never mind. Oh well."
But they wouldn't have...
because it's Stephen Jones. There's a little bit of that. What's that? Carl Rittenhouse. That little mantra that came out of the Carl Rittenhouse. F around, find out.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of that about it.
There is, but I'll tell you the reason I don't think you're right on that, and I know exactly what you're trying to do. Just give him like the benefit of that a bit. But the fact that he's like linked it to Eurovision and whatnot means it wasn't the wrong date. He meant to put it out on that date. And the other thing as well is it's not the substance of it at all. It is, well, it's fabrication. And that's the problem. And I don't think the guys that you just listed there would ever fabricate stuff.
No.
I just don't think that's really important that journalists do not fabricate things.
So I guess, so Stephen Jones is I'll use the term so you don't have to, you two might actually disagree with it. I think he is a clickbait writer. He comes up with controversial opinions to try and get people's blood boiling. Maybe this is his plan. Maybe this is him playing 4D chess with all of us because he's got more airtime now than since he was crying on the Times podcast about Saracens' salary cap.
Look, I actually appreciate
the
his
person
work.
I'd ask about that is JB because I reckon if anyone could get inside the mind of Stephen Jones saying things to get outraged, it would be you.
I actually appreciate his work. I like a contrarian stance. I don't know if you're aware of this. But like, if you can think of a contrarian stance and you can flesh it out, by all means, go for it. And I want to hear it. So I don't mind. I don't think some of his work is pretty good, actually. Right. Okay. So we've done Stephen Jones. Can we talk about other things that didn't happen this week?
Yes, please.
So other things that didn't happen this week. Have you seen the report in the Wales Online that Mike Bubbins had to abandon a game as a match referee because of the abuse he got from 5-year-old boys or something?
I unsurprisingly, I didn't see that actually.
I saw this and two things that I thought. First of all, this definitely didn't happen. So that'd be the first. More lies, brilliant. And the second thing is, if it did happen, and abuse from the parents of 5-year-old boys or abuse from 5-year-old boys is too much for you, maybe it's not the sport for you. Maybe life isn't for you. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's just grow up and deal with it. This is what we're creating, people who can't deal with abuse from 5-year-old boys. I mean, God knows what they said. Would one boy say he wanted to be a girl and the other boy said you're a boy and that was just too much for Mike? I don't know. But that was another hilarious thing. But there was another point I wanted to make about the media as well. which is this week they have been covering the official release of the wording of the RFU high tackle stuff.
Ah.
And, I don't know why this doesn't get... I don't know whether the journalists in the mainstream media don't have enough bandwidth to cover this, whether they don't care, whether they don't think their readers care enough, because ultimately they are just trying to sell copy. That's what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. But it is very, very odd that the term belly tackle has come up again, when they said they were going to... They started with the term belly tackle, and then they started lying about anatomical waist, anatomical weight, and all the rest of it. They consulted to see where the tackle height should be, and then they came straight back to the belly tackle. So we're back to exactly where they said that we'd be before any consultation happened. And no one thinks to question this. No one's thought, let's get the RFU on the phone, let's really hold their feet to the fire. And every time they say, we have been led by the science, they just quote it as if they've been led by the science. No, the BBC haven't questioned them. The Guardian, the Times, all of these serious rugby outlets have never once questioned the RFU on the flagrant lies about following the science. It isn't science-based, right? The things that they're saying just are not true, and yet nobody is covering it. Brilliant. And also, why are they not picking up on the same language been used originally before the consultation, reappearing? It was clearly decided before the consultation, and yet there's no questions. There's no one is accountable. No one answers anything.
So has there been?
Let me just jump in with an email here. Contact EggChasers@gmail.com. Oh, sorry, Phil.
No.
Say what you're going to say, and then I'll...
You go, Tim.
You sure?
You go, yeah.
Neil Osgood emailed in.
Hi, Neil.
Contact EggChasers@gmail.com. And he, firstly, wants to lay claim to having introduced us to the Boulevardier based Negroni.
No, he did not. I got that, would you believe it, from, I think Talk Radio had a cocktail show on. And I was driving back from Sale. And they were like, try a Boulevardier. So that's where I got it from. That's right.
Well, he said he sent us a tweet. He said he sent us a tweet on the matter in December of 2020.
Well, if he introduced you to Boulevardier, he's done a great service.
Yeah, that was definitely my first
but
awareness.
The substantive part of his email was, he just said, "I wonder if anyone else is fed up hearing about, quote, the science, as if the whole scientific body agrees about the thing they're talking about."
Yes.
He said, World Rugby RFU using this type of approach with the new tackle height laws, one will find well-educated scientists that disagree on practically everything.
Yes.
And he says, Bill Sweeney said, quote, "Our decision-making has been guided by scientific insights to create a safer environment for our players, and the evidence supporting this initiative is clear and undeniable."
Undeniable!
This is laughable.
Undeniable. He's laughable.
Well, Neil says, surely this is laughable. The amount of evidence they've used is ludicrous. The control for different variables non-existent. So please stop calling it, quote, the science, and let's look at the weight of scientific opinion based on well-methodized trials. If a body of excellently researched, peer-reviewed scientists say we need to, quote, make the game safer, then we should listen. Not necessarily action, but sure, listen. But, quote, the science is, as you have pointed out, so flawed that it discredits science itself.
I thank you, Neil. That is an excellent email because it agrees with everything that I think. But I'm not going to add any more to that. I think that's a good email. That basically sums up everything I think. Yeah, well done.
Very good.
Well, let me quickly jump onto a different email because I feel we act like we have a service that goes beyond rugby, and Adam Taylor's emailed contact EggChasers
who else does it go
gmail.com and just said he's been trying to find a discussion on coffee machines from a previous episode. He's now in the market to purchase one and needs some recommendations. Says he's not fussed about LCD screens. He's simply looking for something that will make a bloody good espresso.
You want good mechanical
and
reliability.
all he knows so far is that he doesn't need a Lamarzocco or Lamarco. What is it?
Lamarzocco.
Lamarzocco. So he doesn't need that.
I was
a couple of cups every day.
Yeah, I was looking at the Lamarzocco Linear Mini 2021 Fiorentina edition, but I can't afford it right now. Maybe in a few years' time.
Yeah. You want mechanical reliability. I have got a Rocket, and I love it. If you look at Rocket espresso machines, they're very, very cool.
Yours is very cool.
It is a beautiful thing.
It's very expensive as well.
Yes.
I think, Tim, have you got the same as me? We've both got Sage.
Are you still using your Sage?
The Barista Express.
Yeah, I've had it for 8 years now.
I'm sure you've saved thousands of pounds on coffee by now. I know I've saved. My coffee machine has paid for itself several times over. But 7 years out of the...
8 years. It'll be 8 years. It's 8 years this month.
Yeah.
But for the last 3 years, I've been praying it breaks like every time. So, but I'm not gonna get a new one until it breaks down.
Do you know how polite that I am, Tim?
This is.
I know how polite you are, Jay. Yeah,
this is a good story.
I'm so polite that I drove. Was it sulfuric acid that you served?
It was decalcifying agent. I think it was very. I want to say very alkaline. So Claire didn't tell me that she was decalcifying the machine. So I made JB just a normal coffee, a normal double espresso with this extremely alkaline agent within the system. And JB was like, "Oh, that coffee's a bit bitter, isn't it?
Bit sour, this, isn't it?" Because Phil's such a he's so avant-garde with all of his stuff. I started drinking that. Oh, he must mean to do this. He's so precise. There's no way he would serve me something like this. It must be good.
Yeah, I nearly killed JB.
Yeah, very close.
So the answer to your question, Adam, is you cannot look past a Barista Express for the £500 mark.
Yeah, or even
it is the best you can get. Other than that, you need to take the leap to 1,500 or £2,000, basically.
£2,000, I think, is where it's at now.
Yeah, I think so. They are good. Everyone I know who's got the Sage thinks it is good.
Sale Sharks use that very expensive one, which you just said, which I can't remember.
Lamar Zocco.
Yeah, they've got one of those.
You often see them in good. They do. So the Linear Mini, that's like a 4 or 5 grand machine.
Child's play.
That's that's their cheap at home one. If you ever look at their the ones that you get in coffee, actual good coffee shops, they're like 10, 12, 15 grand kind of stuff. There's serious gear.
That's Six Nations money for us. Right, okay.
Not anymore, it's not JB.
Yeah, not anymore. Not for me, it's not. See you later.
I'm also just going to wrap up. As soon as we're going through the emails, I'll just go through them now. Gavin Hegarty, one of many people who's let you know that it's Viaplay who have all the top 14 rugby.
Yes.
And they are what Premier Sports was. So you may well, without realising it, actually have a subscription to Viaplay.
I do, but I've just never seen anything on that channel. I watched a quarter of the quarterfinals the other day on Viaplay. So
and I should have known that because I've actually worked for Viaplay twice this season.
Really? Do what?
I didn't even know that. It was on Challenge Cup matches.
Oh, really?
Was it?
Oh, cool.
One Challenge Cup match, and there was one something I can't remember what else it was. Anyway. So yeah, I've worked for them and didn't know.
So
yeah,
should we do Premiership semi-finals, because I kind of think that's what most people like.
Yeah,
let's do it.
That's what most of our listeners are here for. So, there's only one real semi-final.
Yeah, despite Northampton's spirited fight back in the first half of the second half, it always felt like this was going one way.
I am so bored of Northampton. I mean, I was convinced. I was convinced that they were going to win. Right.
At what point?
Saturday morning.
Okay.
I put all my bets. I looked at the two teams. I was like, do you know what? Saracens are aging. They have been found short in a couple of big games. Northampton are getting better and better and better. They score points. If they can make this into a tit-for-tat point-scoring battle, Northampton can do this. And then Northampton went and did exactly what you expect Northampton to do. There was no fight in them. There was no graft in them. I thought the comms team got a few things very wrong about the Northampton style of play. They were talking about how physical Northampton are in defence. It's like, you're not watching the same team that I am.
Haven't they conceded the most points in the league, bar maybe one or two?
Comfortably the most points.
Yeah, it might actually be the most points in the league.
Well, I mean, you're not stopping many people with Dingwall, Finn Smith and Hutchinson. As lovely as they are as players going forward, they have some deficiencies going backwards.
They've conceded against... they've conceded 5 fewer points than Newcastle, who finished last. Only 5 fewer. That's it.
So, yeah, second bottom, but they are top of all the attacking stats.
Exactly.
Yes, they are.
So, for me, the biggest failure for Northampton was not getting over the try line in the first 5 minutes. I think if they do that, things sort of fall into place a little bit more for them. But it's disappointing, I thought that Trevor Davidson was going to make a huge impact because finally they've got someone who's a bit wiser on the scrum. Mm-hmm. He is good at that. Courtney Law's been back. Ludlam been back. Augustus, that's a nice back row.
Yeah.
Ribbons is, allegedly hard enough to go to Toulon. So, there are bits and pieces in that pack that make it not a joke. But then they were a joke. There's no two ways about it. They were not a semi-final standard team.
They were just moved in that first 30 minutes. When they didn't score after 5, they were moved too easily around the park and around the field.
Yeah.
And that little short kicking game that Saracens used a couple of times broke them down far too easily. You have to question the back three in that position, particularly Furbank.
Well, you have to question their preparation, don't you? Because you know what Saracens bring, broadly speaking. You know they're going to be fairly clever. And we've seen the short kicking game. It's not the first time that they've ever used it. And they're just completely naive. And some of their defensive errors, it goes to the point that you think, are they even practicing defence? And maybe they're not. And that's a serious point. Maybe the emphasis is so much on attack and possession that if defence is like 1 day a week.
Yeah, and I can understand that because the point that you always make, JB, it's all about trade-offs.
Yep.
And maybe the trade-off was because some of their defence was okay, but that in the first half, that short kicking game caught them out, and maybe they were just trying to be too physical on the gain line, and that left them the blind spot of in behind them.
Well, funny enough, that's exactly what Commons said. So Commons said the way Northampton are going to try and stop Saracens is going to be physical on the gain line. I was like, well, they're not.
Well,
good luck.
They can do that, but then there's the trade-off.
But, physical on the gain line is what Tompkins looks like, and Lazowski. They are physical on the gain line. Farrell is physical on the gain line.
Dingwall can be. Hutchinson, less so.
They can be. But then the boys I've just named on the Saracens side take it up another level. It's like they relish it. It's like they want to do that. And sometimes when you're watching guys try and be physical but not enjoy it, it's just not the same thing. Like you just know Lazowski loves banging people and Tompkins loves banging people.
The other time where the defence kind of went AWOL, and it was the last 5 minutes, but that Malins try at the end, it was basically Faz round the back, a wide pass to Elliot Daly at pace, and a wide pass to Malins, and he just walked into the corner.
Yeah,
the Northampton defence was so narrow, and two wide passes, and there's no one there, which again I think it was Furbank kind of misread that outside the wide channel there.
Yeah, Northampton. I don't know. I've concentrated a lot on Northampton. There's not really much to say about Saracens because they were so Saracen-y. They're so well organised. They just know what they're doing.
But I think you're right. The Saracens team, it's got less depth than previous Saracens teams because the salary cap has decreased, and they're also apparently within the salary cap now. So they've had the double whammy. Most teams have just had the single whammy of the salary cap reduction.
Yeah.
They had to get down to the salary cap and then get the reduction.
Well, on Saracens, I have a theory.
I'd also add they're without 3 international back row players as well.
Well, that's it.
That is a great point.
They're missing 3 back row players, and they still absolutely dominated Northampton.
Yeah,
but
I do think they will not have it all their own way next week. In 2 weeks' time.
Well, let's come to that in a second. Let's just stick on Saracens and their future, because I have a very strong feeling that they're going to find it as difficult, if not more difficult, than Exeter are finding it when they have to replace their squad.
I think you're right. I think there could be several England players who've stayed with them for a long time who could go post-World Cup or shortly thereafter because they're in the twilight of their career. They will have one big move to Japan or France.
Billy says he's staying.
Has he signed a contract as well?
Has he? I'm not sure he has, but he says he's staying, right? So, he must have a massive pay cut to stay. He just must. There's no ifs bets. So
unless they're getting rid of a load of other people.
Yeah.
There's one of those two things.
Well, my theory is this, right? That when the salary cap thing happened, the players very much felt incredibly loyal to Saracens because they'd been well looked after. Legally or illegally, they'd been well looked after. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I think it's going to be very hard for the Saracens boys to move anywhere in England. They're going to stay basically with Saracens.
Yeah, they're not, and there's no money in England anymore.
Yeah,
they're not going to stay in England.
So, as such,
apart from Malins, who's going to Bristol, Saracens
are sort of like stuck with these aging internationals. They've got loyalty both ways. That divorce is going to be very, very, very messy. They can only keep Farrell or Itoje. I don't think you can keep both.
Yeah, and they're obviously letting go of Malins in order to keep, I don't know, Elliot Daly,
Earl.
Earl.
I mean, Earl must be worth a fortune.
Think how much Theo McFarland would be worth in France.
Yeah. I mean, all these boys are going to have to re-sign soon, and they're going to have to make a decision. Do we stick with the ageing international who might stay for a discount, like a Mako or a Billy, or maybe even an Owen?
Alex Good is staying.
Alex Good.
But he's 35 now.
Yeah. So, do they stick with the ageing players? Because they're still going to be better than what they can get for the same money elsewhere. Or do they turn over that squad? And eventually they'll have to turn over that squad.
Let's just enjoy them now, rather than talking about what they're going to
No, Tim, no.
Enjoy them
because
now,
this is the beauty of
final.
This is the beauty of sport. You get to sort of mess around with the permutations and imagine what's going to happen in the future. This is why we enjoy it. Just enjoy them now. No,
we can do both.
There's times to have a discussion about how Saracens' squad looks like in 2 years' time, but 2 weeks before a Premiership final.
Well, let's not talk about them in isolation then. Let's do the next game and let's bring it all together towards the end.
This was a proper semi-final, wasn't it?
Wow, this was good.
After 30 minutes in the Saracens-Northampton game, you knew you knew who was going to win it. With 20 minutes to go in this game, until that Aaron Reid try that gave them the, whatever it was, 8-point gap. Or
well, even the penalty. No, it was the penalty.
The penalty.
For an 8-point gap. That try gave him a 5-point gap.
Yeah. This looked so. Yeah, it was only the last 10 minutes really that there was a little bit of daylight. You did not know which way this game was going to go.
No,
the moment you knew which way it was going to go was when Charlie Atkinson missed touch.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Comms had a thing this week in this game saying, in order to beat Sale's physicality on the game line, you've got to be physical with them on the game line. To a degree, yes. If you're La Rochelle, yes, you can do that. I don't think any other team in the Premiership can do that to Sale. And I think Leicester, broadly speaking, understood that. I think their tactics were right too. There was so much box kicking, which isn't a surprise.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a rugby fan, or you say you're a rugby fan, and you don't like kicking, you are mad. You are absolutely wild, right? The first box kick from Leicester was so exciting because Ben Youngs is teeing it up. He knows exactly where it's going to go. He is an expert, and Leicester just released the hounds. And I think that is one of the most exciting sort of throwdowns in all of rugby, which is we're going to kick you the ball, we're going to send these savages to get it back, and by the way, you're allowed to come at us because we absolutely back ourselves. And to make it even more exciting, bloody Carpenter gets in the air like a salmon. I was like, right, well up for it. So that is like
Carpenter's first take was ace, wasn't it?
I mean, if that's the opening exchange, you're like, yeah, this is going to be a real contest. If you can't understand why the kicking game and the kick chase is really great, you just don't get the game.
What I would say on that,
and then on the flip side, you had George Ford chucking up the odd spiral bomb.
Yes, the spiral bomb is always
that never spiraling. That's the first thing I mentioned about spiral bombs.
What I would say about the box kicks, there was a couple of ace ones, but too many of them were just too deep, and it let Carpenter and Freddie Stewart both did excellently, but so many of them were just 10 yards too deep.
Yeah.
So they catch it under no pressure and can get footwork on. So I love a well executed box kick, but when you're doing it, I've got them in front of. So it was 36 from Sale and 37 kicks from hand from Leicester, which is a lot.
Yeah, it is, but it didn't feel. Watching it didn't feel like
it's 2 a minute of ball in play.
Who cares?
Well, I mean, no. I care.
That is a lot.
I care when 40% of them are good. When far too many of them are too deep.
The positioning of those fullbacks, and you'd have to understand what they wanted to do with the kicks, but also the positioning of the fullbacks, the quality of the fullbacks, the quality of the back three in general. I mean, on Leicester's side, you've got the England fullback, presumably on the wing, and then the other England fullback at fullback. And Potter's not bad either.
Potter's very handy.
Carpenter is turning into an absolute star. That has to be the next England fullback.
I think
Has to be.
Problem is England are stacked, but I think Carpenter was class. No. I think he's been.
I think he's great, but I think it's over egging the pudding to say he's England's next fullback.
He has to be. I mean, he is operating at such a high level now.
I really do think he's class, but the problem is he's in a position that's absolutely stacked with talent.
He's class, but he's not unique, is he? And Stewart is unique. And does he have the outright top end stuff of someone like Henry Arundel? No. But do you know who he is? He's Mike Brown. He's the second coming of Mike Brown.
Yeah, it's not a bad analogy.
I mean,
Mike Brown, it took ages because he was against Foden and Good, both of who had. Foden was faster and Good had more tricks in his locker. Brown was. He was always my favourite of the three.
Stewart's amazing, right? But Stewart makes mistakes. People keep forgetting he makes mistakes. Defensive reads, and he drops balls. And they all say, he's the best in the world going up in the air. He's the best 80% of the time. But then the other 20%, he does drop the ball. In fact, he dropped 2.
If you're going to talk about a limitation of Freddie Stewart, I think it's just pure gas. And we talked about England in the 2019 World Cup.
Yeah.
When actually, pretty good. England just had gas.
Yeah, pace kills. Really does.
You've got to have, because if in international rugby you might only get 1 or 2 half chances a game, and if you're not fast enough to finish the 1 or 2 half chances, you can't be out there.
Yeah. So my criticism of Leicester, and it's still a criticism of Leicester, is I love their style of play. I love the pressure-based game. I love how it's all bolted together and it all sort of works. But where it comes apart for them, in my mind, is they're not good enough at executing when they need to score tries. So when they get into 22, they try and do, they're just not good enough at rugby in the 22 to score tries, unless it's a driving ball. Sale, on the other hand, seem to have that nailed. That first try from Sale was a thing of beauty.
The rulebook try.
Yeah.
With the missed pass. It was Carpenter, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Put the final pass in.
So, was it Dupree? Might have been.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But someone put in a great final pass, right? But the build-up play, I think before the try, just the running lines, the angles, the precision that Sale use when they're attacking now. I mean, it's like the 2012 version, ball in hand, Tom Brady Sale. It's that good. It is really good.
I'm actually going to say, just overall, zooming out, big picture stuff, Sale have had a really good season regardless of what happens in the final.
Agreed.
And they're actually delivering on their potential and the talent they've got in their squad, and it's a lovely blend of Saffers and young local lads.
Yeah.
It's really good. I also think we've got to remember that Richard Wigglesworth, I think, has done a really good job at Leicester this season. To get them to this semi-final at one point looked well beyond him.
Well, yeah, we say that, and I do agree with you on the table. But what no one was talking about for Leicester was the run of home games that they had when they were in that position. So internally at Leicester,
I was talking about it.
Okay, well then, so maybe he didn't do that good then, or do that well.
No, I think he did very well in a really difficult season when his coaching, the spine of his coaching team got ripped out. I think Leicester had done really well.
Yeah, well, I think they were prepared for that. That's the other thing as well. It was an inevitability that Borthwick could go, but they just didn't quite know when. So it was all
so let me add one further thing to it. So I think we've been talking about how good Rob Dupree has been at fly half, and he was in the BT Sport Dream Team, and he was absolutely outstanding.
At fly half,
you saw at fly half. You saw today the class of George Ford, who is one of the players who Leicester didn't have today that they had in their team last year when they won it.
Yeah,
and Leicester did not have the player that they signed to replace him. And I think actually, when you look, rather than saying, "Oh, Leicester didn't do this, Leicester didn't do that," I think ultimately you could make a strong argument that had Leicester had their replacement for George Ford, they quite likely would have been in the final. And it can just come down to that.
I mean, without doubt, Andre Pollard has been far, far better and far more effective than I thought that he'd be. and he would make a difference.
I actually think George Ford was the point of difference today. So
exactly my point.
Yeah, I would have loved to see that game with Andre Pollard, or even George Ford in a Leicestershire, which is kind of where they were last year. It's almost the same team with the exception of Genge.
Yeah,
to where they were last year, and they won the whole thing.
Yeah, I think George Ford's wearing a Leicester shirt. Leicester win that one. Andre Pollard's playing for Leicester, and it's a total coin toss, and that's fair play all round. Sale earned the right to be at home, and maybe that just made the difference. So sort of post-morteming anything as a failure or characterising anything as particularly bad, I just don't see that with Leicester.
I don't think anyone would call Leicester season a failure. Would you? I wouldn't call it a failure.
I definitely wouldn't.
No, I don't think.
Well, pointing to making too much of any point of failure, like they don't finish well enough.
They don't. I mean, that is just a fact. Like, of all the things that they do, because of their pressure-based game, when they are down there, they need to convert their points because they don't get down in the 22 enough. And actually, the point of difference, it could have been George Ford, the way that he ran that show, but actually, Leicester in general this season have not been good enough in that final 22 when they've got to play a bit of rugby to get in the corner. They should be drilled almost like a rugby league team with those lines and angles and just get over the game line because that's what they need to do.
You're saying they're not good enough with ball in hand?
They're not good enough with ball in hand. Whereas Sale were excellent in parts.
And that's the other feature of Sale is, despite Mike Forshaw going, their defence has continued to be outstanding.
It's almost like what I said about Mike Forshaw when he went to Wales was entirely true. Almost.
Maybe it's because he put in such good systems that the show
exactly
carries on.
Maybe he just left the manual on the table.
Yeah,
and then read the manual.
Exactly.
That's what happened.
So well done, Sale.
Yeah. Now, I'll throw us out to Tim first. Break down the final for me, Tim.
The upper tier of Twickenham is empty.
Oof. Oof. I think Sale will travel in force.
From a spectacle point of view, these are the two of the three least supported clubs in the Premiership.
Yes.
Right? Or two of the bottom four.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, the one thing I'd say about this week is, for the first time in ages, my phone has been going with people asking, can I get Sale tickets? Or you go into the game. There's actual some real interest. Now, Saracens, they go to lots of finals. Yeah, they're not that well supported, but also they're spoiled, aren't they, really? You know, if you like finals and whatnot, Saracens are always in one of them.
They've had too many.
Yeah. I think Sale will travel in force. Now, will it be enough to fill Twickenham? No. But,
well, did you see the AJ Bell Stadium? I think there were quite... I'm not saying this to criticise Sale. I'm saying this as a massive... This is that Leicester are an exceptional rugby club. I think it's quite likely there were more Leicester fans than Sale fans at the AJ Bell Stadium.
That's Leicester, isn't it? I mean, they are the biggest club.
Well,
they might be the biggest club in the world still.
Well, exactly. So when it's a 12,000 seater stadium and at least 6,000 Leicester fans travel up, to then expect more than 6,000 Sale fans to travel down to London.
That's a good point.
Fanciful.
I think
I just don't think it's happening.
I think more fans will go than you realise. I think there'll be... It's not happened, has it, for 12 years?
More...
12 or 13 years it was since Sale won?
It's more than that. It was 2006. 17 years.
No, it was a 10-year anniversary, not so long ago.
7 years ago?
Maybe. No, because Wigglesworth is like one of the few players still playing.
Yeah, 2000. I'm sure it's 2006.
No, it's not. No, it's later than that, mate. Is it 2006? 2007? 13 years.
2006 when they won it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 2006.
So how many years is that?
17.
17
exactly.
Years. So 7 years ago was the 10-year anniversary. I told you. God, it feels like we were celebrating that like the other day. Oh well.
Life comes
by the
at
way,
you fast,
this
JB.
isn't to criticise. I'm not saying this to criticise or have a moan or anything. It's just the reality of it.
Did you see the John Ross interview before the game, where he got asked?
Was it painfully South African?
What was it? What did it like? What was it like when you first came here? And he said, "When I first came here, no one was watching in the stands." I was like, "Yeah, you definitely went to the right place."
Yeah.
And then he did go on to say, but it's amazing, like, we brought some brilliant players in and now the stands are always bouncing. Like, there's a real atmosphere to the club. And I have to say, I was there 2 months ago to watch the Saracens game, the prequel for the final. It was bouncing. It was absolutely, it was heaving. It's full. Not, I tell you what, not an empty seat.
The corporate sale is great. Like there are bits of it they've really worked hard on, and it's going in the right direction. I am certain of that.
It's quite funny actually that so I'm on it's one of those WhatsApp groups where do you know that you have WhatsApp groups sometimes that you're added to and you want to leave but you don't want to be rude when it says so and so has left.
You want to see the rugby group that I was added to? I had to. I mean, I just couldn't bear it for much longer. I was on a rugby group.
So it's basically Broughton Park Youth Rugby, and it's all the different coaches of all the age groups. And anyway, weeks and weeks and weeks ago, or whatever, some of the Broughton Park minis were asked, "Would you like to come and play touch rugby at half time of the semi-final game?" Whenever the Sale had achieved the semi-final a couple of weeks back, and they were like, "Yeah." And then they got sent through the ticket prices. Now this is a supply and demand thing. In the past, when local mini rugby teams have been asked to come along to games, they might have got some complimentary tickets, or the parents might have been able to get their tickets for a tenner if you bring your kid along. And that's part of the reason why they do all the touch rugby at half time. It's just one way to try and pump up the actual tickets that they haven't managed to sell, which is quite a lot in the case of Sale for a lot of the games, which is fair enough. But so on this particular occasion, what was sent through was, your kid can come along and play half time in the semi-final. Child tickets are £5 and adults is whatever it was, 25, 30 quid. So like full face value and cheap kid tickets. And that WhatsApp group was kicking off about how out of order it is, how rude it is. I can't believe they're doing to that. They're stitching us up. What do they?
Really?
It's not free though, is it?
Yeah,
it's professional sport.
No, and I was thinking, it's a Premiership semi-final.
Yeah,
like
it's an honour to even get the. Yeah, I mean, imagine if just put it the other way around. Okay, what if you bought a ticket to the Champions League semi-final? I mean, you'd be honoured just to have the ability to have the option to buy one, let alone your kid run onto the pitch.
That is,
because people are they're wild when it comes to rugby. Wild, like it's not.
So
free.
then they pulled the teams in protest and said no, we don't want to play. And then someone was there at the ground today and took a picture of the pitch and posted it on the group. Took a picture of the pitch, and there was only a couple of teams playing at half time, and it was all it's a look at the lack of touch rugby going on the pitch today. It's just like, I don't know. It's just felt slightly entitled, or
it is entitled. Absolutely entitled.
It's a Premiership semi-final.
Yeah, 100%. And these clubs, they've got to make money. Like
it's a privilege to watch these guys play.
It is.
It's an absolute privilege.
You're watching a dozen international stars, more than that.
I mean, George Ford is one of the greatest Premiership players in.
He's one of the
greatest in Premiership history.
Yeah, he's one of the best players in the world.
Yeah. Okay.
You could have had Ford versus World Cup winner
Pollard. Yeah,
Pollard.
That's worth 25 quid on its own, if that's what it is.
100% it is.
Or whatever it was, whatever the price was, I don't know. Yeah, but it was the point that I'm well up for my kid playing at half time. What, I have to buy a ticket? No.
I know.
Ridiculous.
Oh well. So the stands will be empty. Have you got any predictions, Phil?
I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be closer than people think. And part of that is I was buoyed. So I've not seen as much. None of us have seen as much as George Ford as we would have liked to this season. Mm-hmm. Although many Shark fans had Premiership fly half of the year to make up for it.
Yep.
But watching him today, watching some of his kicking, some of the way he controlled the game, there was once in the first half where there was a loose ball. And
is this when he kicks it to touch?
No, it wasn't that one.
Oh.
It was the loose ball that he scoops up, and defenders are on top of him, and he just does this half show to fix the defender. I think it was Potter defending against him, who's an international centre.
Yep.
This half show just to fix Potter to get him to bite into him, and then just popped it through to Carpenter, which created a hole for Carpenter. It was this fraction of a second thing. and it was totally unplanned because it was a bouncing ball. It's like, that is absolutely class.
Yeah, the one I liked from him today was when he kicked the ball to touch. So it's just exactly
72 minutes when Leicester had just been attacking.
Yeah, and just pinged it straight in.
Turnover ball, and he just got it just millimetres inside the touchline.
Exactly what
the
they
other
needed.
thing I loved is, some people might say it was an accident, but he obviously recognised that he couldn't pass the ball directly to Aaron Reid's hands, and he bounced it off the surface to him for the winning try.
Oh, I was
That's
so
class.
gutted for Reedy today. So he makes that beautiful break and the most unnecessary forward pass in the history of forward passes.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is just, to me, that is the story of his season so far. He should be Premiership top try scorer by a country mile because he is so fast, and yet it just doesn't quite get quite the right bounce. So I was delighted that he got the bouncing ball because that is exactly the sort of thing which doesn't break his way.
The right bounce on the bouncing ball.
But then to make that wonder try, which is what it would have been, to put it forward, it's like, oh no. But,
it is ace to see that. You mentioned it before, Tim. The mix of kind of local lads and Saffers generally is where it's gone, with a couple of exceptions. But to see that back three of Carpenter, Roebuck and Reid, and to see War and Rafi Quirk, and to see some of the local lads,
like
McIntyre and like George Ford, who've come back into the fold, it's class.
Yeah, so one of the this is exactly the thought I had actually when I saw that back three, which is during Dimes' tenure, we were told over and over again about the amount of talent in the area, the amount of kids coming through, and the same names always came up: Wilkinson, Doherty, Reid, Roebuck, Quirk. Not so much; he's a bit younger.
Okay,
They're like the sort of that age group, and they never really came. Ashman, they never really came through. They've never been the stars that I thought they would be. I thought today was a bit of a turning point.
And it took getting rid of Steve Diamond to actually bring that.
No, it did
through.
not. No, it did not. It's just how it happened.
I've just remind you of Dimes' tenure, right? It's a 5-year plan, and we're looking to.
This is year 5. This is year 5, mate. On rails.
And then 3 years in, when it was going really badly, and they finished 10th. Right, this is year 0. Starting now is year 0.
That is like the halftime teams that we've all been in games where we're either 50 points up or 50 points down at halftime, and someone always says, "It's 0-0. It's 0-0 from here, lads. 0-0 from here." No, it's not. We're losing by 50 points.
Yeah. We need a different strategy to 0-0. What was the was it Leicester scrum coach who said we just want to stick to the plan? Yeah, so he gets interviewed. This is a stupid thing to say. We just want to stick to the plan. What if it's not working? What if your plan's not working? Have you ever heard of them say, "Yeah, our plan is terrible"?
Yeah. Throw the plan out the window, scrap it, start again.
It's just one of those. Last week when we said you've got as soon as the cliches come out, you terminate the interview and you fine the club £10,000. That should be one of them. Immediately, just cut off his mic and we return to the game, and then Leicester handed a £10,000 fine. Stick to
just
our
on
plan.
other Premiership news. Am I right in saying that? So London Irish have been given a deadline for the end of the month, and it's still not certain that this American consortium of cash is actually going to come through.
Yeah.
Now they paid the players, didn't they? And my understanding was that money was coming from this consortium. Yeah. I could be wrong about that, but they paid their April salaries were like.
That Ray Lewis is involved in this.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Crikey.
Yeah. So hopefully that is coming through, but. Am I right in saying, because again, I'm in Greece and detached from this, but one of the people that's away on holiday with us, he said that Exeter Chiefs have announced that things are a bit dicey there.
They are dicey. They're dicey everywhere. Dicey absolutely everywhere. I mean, Exeter, because of some mental campaign by some mental people who are, mentally unstable, actually, in literally some of their cases, forced Exeter's hand for this whole rebrand for the money that they didn't have, and then there's COVID, and it's a whole Swiss cheese thing. One of these things can happen, but for all of them to happen simultaneously has been devastating for them. And on top of that, the reputational damage that these idiots, and BT Sport can hang their head in shame for this as well, having some Native American scholar try and lecture us all on how awfully racist that we are, facilitated by their staff. the damage to Exeter has been massive because they used to be everyone's second favourite team, and now they're sort of looked down upon as a slightly racist, like bad smell about them. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that is the case. But then I guess everyone gets what they want then.
I've not seen those, but you're right on the point, JB. Everyone is in a perilous position.
Yeah,
and everyone, if nothing else, these clubs would dream of making £500,000 a year in profit. They've all had in the round £500,000 taken away from them this year because they've lost 2 home fixtures.
Yep.
So. And by the way, none of them are making £500,000 profit.
And £500,000 is roughly what Sale spend. Roughly, I guess, roughly what they spend on the women's team. So, like, not only the women's game is absolutely crazy. So, not only are all these top clubs pumping loads of money into the ladies' game. I mean, I've heard the rumours. It's the greatest financial opportunity rugby is ever going to see. And if you don't invest in it now, the game will die. But like, it is contributing to killing the game. Like, these clubs cannot do everything, and here we are. Do you think that Sale ladies are making 600,000 a year?
I would be surprised if they break even. That half of any club. Yeah, I hope they all do. I hope they all make a profit.
Do we think Exeter ladies are doing that? I mean, they've all got to be funded.
Yeah. I would be surprised if any of them. I mean, none of the men's team make any money. So
yeah, so then you've got this extra layer of expense on top.
Yeah.
And Wasps took ladies rugby extremely seriously, and netball that worked well.
There.
Yeah. So yeah,
I wasn't sure exactly what the situation is, but hopefully the next couple of weeks bring some good things to London Irish at least.
Yeah.
I'd hate to see him go. I mean, the problem these
Gavin
clubs,
Doyle got in touch.
Hi, Gavin.
Oh, sorry, go on, Jay.
Yeah. The problem that these clubs have. Sorry, we're talking over each other. Do you want to go first?
No. I think there must be some sort of delay on the line here.
Right,
comical.
I'll just finish my point.
You go for it.
The problem that the Premiership clubs have, and we touched on it last week, and in a way it's the same as Welsh regions. The WRU desperately want the Welsh regions just to die, and they can do whatever they want, right? And Premiership Rugby and the RFU desperately want a Premiership club to die. They know they need an even number of teams. They've got shareholders, yada, 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 and they're not going to vote themselves out of existence. Could be Newcastle, who just don't take the game seriously at all anymore. It's most likely going to be London Irish.
It could be Sale. It could be any of them.
Well,
if an owner drops dead or has a change of heart.
Oh, God. I mean,
their separate businesses start failing.
Something happened to, say, Simon Orange at Sale. It is game over.
Exactly.
It is game over.
But it could be anyone. If Steve Lansdowne all of a sudden decides, or he drops dead and his children and family don't want to take it on, Bristol.
Yeah.
Like, it could be any of them. Now, Bristol have got a big fan base and all the rest of it, but you never know what's going to happen with any of these teams. No. They're all so perilous.
And, so the RFU kind of want this to happen. And meanwhile, they're sort of unstitching the game at the grassroots level anyway. And then you got the CVC deal. It's inevitable someone will die again soon. I mean, inevitable that one of the clubs will go. But you just don't know. And I don't think that's the end of it. I don't think that it gets financially stronger once you lose London Irish. I think the next club goes, and the next club goes, and the next club goes, and they've got no one to replace them because they can't all play in the Championship.
Well, and if another club does go, then it's another 250 grand. I'm using 250 grand as like it's a flat rate for a home game. That is the Gloucester. What Gloucester said. Who was it? Worcester cancelling or not playing their home game cost them 250k.
Yeah.
Some clubs will be big, like Leicester will be more than that. Others
Just
will be slightly
think
less.
about the damage that I just think about the damage that all this does to the game, because when you lose a team and they dissipate the Championship like Wasps and Worcester, I don't think we'll ever see Worcester again. I think they're just done. Right?
I think you're probably right.
So,
if anything, you might get Wasps at 6 ways. That might be the best.
And that won't last.
That's a Frankenstein's monster, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's another disaster waiting to happen then. But yeah, it just all the problems compound, and then the brand of the Premiership, which actually is a strong brand and is a great competition with loads of history.
It was once.
That will then get diluted because they'll either. Well, how do they get the extra teams? Do they go to the Welsh? Do they join a bigger competition? And then once you unstitch that brand, it takes years and years and years to be able to create an institution that's worth anything. So yeah, they're all dead.
Tim, you were going to mention Gavin Doyle.
Yeah, Gavin Doyle, because it's Eurovision weekend, he has a quiz. I'm hoping you're going to be able to hear this through my phone, through the microphone, from Greece, through my computer, into the rugby dungeon. So let me try this. Just let me know if you can't hear this properly.
Greetings, EggChasers, from Gavin in Guadalajara, all the way over in Mexico. I have a quiz for you guys, and the quiz is current international rugby player or former Eurovision winner. Given the month that's in it and the appending 67 staging of the Concours Eurovision de la Chanson, or simply Eurovision to you and I, taking place near you guys in Liverpool, I wanted to test your knowledge and see if you can identify whether the following 30 individuals are singers or wingers, good lookers or hookers, or best known for mic drops, or indeed as tight head props.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
It's such good effort. Well done, Gav. Right, here we go then with question number 1.
So first up from Denmark, I have 3 names for you. Carl Christian Vansgaard, Jørgen Olsen, and Torbjørn Vestergaard.
I have no idea.
So I'm going to say Vestergaard is the rugby player.
Okay.
I do
JB,
not.
you got Vansgaard, Olsen, or Vestergaard.
Olsen. I feel like there's been an Olsen that's played rugby.
You're guessing the. Are you guessing the rugby player or you're trying to guess the? Okay.
So hang on. What's the format here? One's a rugby player, one's a singer, one's nobody.
In the case of Denmark, 2 of them are rugby players. One of them is a Eurovision singer. So you're
Christ!
Trying to,
so hang on. We're not even talking about Premiership. We're talking about like Danish.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Danish international rugby player.
Oh,
the rugby players ply their trade in France.
Oh, do they?
Ah.
Yeah.
How?
Oh.
It's embarrassing.
But anyway, Vansgaard, Olsen, or Vestergaard, which one of those is the Eurovision contestant?
So the first one's Eurovision.
Vansgaard, yeah.
You're both wrong. He plays for Stade Mantois Rugby.
Obviously he does. Obviously.
So anyway, 0-0 at the moment. Next question.
From Estonia, I have 2. Dave Benton and Luke Fable.
Dave Benton and Luke
Estonia.
Fable.
Dave Denton.
Dave Benton.
Benton.
Oh, Benton.
Bentos.
And Luke Veeble.
We do know that there's Estonia occasionally like to pick a British and or Irish player to play over there. So give me Dave Benton.
Dave Benton's a rugby player. I agree.
Oh, because of Robin Hazelhurst, the international loose head prop.
For Finland, isn't it?
Loose head prop.
Friend of the pod. Dave Benton was Estonia's Eurovision contestant in 2001.
What?
Luke Veeble is an Estonian international who plays at Leicester Lions.
Oh, nice.
They do like their rugby in Estonia. Some big strong boys.
And
as
Leicester.
Well. And Leicester, conveniently.
Next question.
From Ireland, we have 3 names. Max Deegan, Paul Harrington, and Charlie McGettigan.
So Max Deegan
is definitely a rugby player.
Yeah.
I know that name.
Blindside flanker for Leinster and Ireland, I think.
By the way, just before we go
You're trying to find the rugby player. The other 2 are Eurovision contestants.
Oh, Max Deegan then.
Yeah.
So Max Deegan,
right,
correct.
Hang on, before we continue. Leicester Lions, we used to have a winger, right, who came to Broughton Park. I don't think you ever played with him. Way before your time, actually. Really nice guy. I'll say his name. No, should I say his name? I'll say his first name, right? So his nickname, because he couldn't catch, was Jimmy Concrete Hands. We just called him Jimmy Concrete, and he never knew. So he thought we called him Jimmy Concrete because he's really hard.
He's hard as nails.
Actually, he couldn't catch.
Hard as concrete.
All right, then the next one is Israel, and you're trying to find the Eurovision. 2 of these are rugby players. I mean, they've got a team out there, haven't they?
Yeah.
Tel Aviv Heat.
Yeah, which had a few ex-Premiership stars and a current Premiership star.
Can you name the Premiership stars?
The Ibatoya.
Yeah.
It was a South African back row from Quins went out there.
Yep.
Whose name escapes me.
And one more.
Someone like Charlie Walker. He's not Charlie Walker.
No, it's not Charlie Walker.
Not Not Dave Denton. No.
Close. You're right. You're on the right lines.
Not Mike Williams.
No. Again, right lines. Exactly that sort of description.
Okay.
He'd fit into that box perfectly.
Not Dave Ewers, obviously, who would have fit into a similar size and shaped box.
Back in the Premiership now.
Back in the Premiership.
GJ Van Veltzer.
Correct.
Oh, very good, Tim.
Well done, Tim.
Good cocker. Who was the other?
Right, so
Bothma.
Bothma, Ronaldo
Bothma.
Bothma.
I loved him. I thought he was a
Ronaldo
great player.
Bothma.
Boscher. Yeah.
You're trying to find the Eurovision contestant. 2 of these are rugby players.
Okay.
3 more from Israel. Yotam Schulman, Itzhak Cohen, and Uri Geil.
No idea.
So Schumann, Cohen, and De Gale. Give me Cohen as the Eurovision star.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, that one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, well done, us. Well done.
I know my rugby and
Correct.
Eurovision.
So we've got Italy now. 4 contestants.
Surely this will be easier. Surely we'll know the rugby players.
Spot the 2 rugby players. Spot the 2 rugby players out of this 4.
Okay.
I have 4 people from Italy for you. Pietro Ceccarelli, Tuto Cotugno, Damiano David, and Gianmarco Lucchesi.
So the problem is he speaks
Michael,
really
that was,
good Italian.
Pietro
Can
Ceccarelli.
he anglicise those words to me? Like I would say them.
Gavin is too multilingual and does it with an incredible
Pietro
accent.
Is he a polymath?
Yeah, he does everything.
Pietro Ceccarelli,
Cacciarelli.
Tuto Cotugno,
Cotugno.
Damiano David,
I think he's a rugby player.
Gianmarco Lucchesi.
He sounds like a rugby player.
I think the last 2 are rugby players, David and Lucchesi.
Yeah.
Or Lucchesi.
Lucchesi. Yeah, last 2 for us, Tim, as rugby players.
You're right in the case of Lucchesi. You're right on the case of Lucchesi. He's an Italian international hooker.
Okay.
Current Italian international hooker. The other one was Pietro Ceccarelli, who's also an Italian international tight head prop who can breathe.
Well, there you go. Very good. Next.
Couple more to go. We got Denmark. Spot the 2 of these are rugby players. Sorry, not Denmark. Holland, the Netherlands.
Okay.
3 more from the Netherlands. Wulf van Dijk, Wiekes Meijer, or Duncan Lawrence.
Duncan Lawrence plays rugby.
2 are rugby players.
Yeah. Maya and Lawrence play rugby.
Yeah, Maya, definitely.
Maya does play rugby, yeah.
For who?
The other one's Van Dijk. The hard one is, there's a lot of South Africans. There's a lot of Dutchmen in South Africa.
Yes, there is.
I imagine
Afrikaans,
Wulf van Dijk might be a South African who's gone back to Rotterdam Rugby Club. So
that's nice.
you were wrong there.
Last one?
We've got. Come on then. Okay, Norway. Spot the 2 of these are rugby players.
3 from Norway. Alexander Rybak, Christopher Bornsheim, or Will Cadden.
So we're looking for the one...
The one non-rugby player.
Borshine. Is it Borshine, the middle one?
He plays for Stavanger Rugby Club.
Oh, not
Norway.
Not Stavanger.
It was Rybak was the Eurovision contestant. Will Cadden is a back row player at Maidenhead.
Wow.
That's cool.
Spot 2 of these are rugby players from Portugal.
A further 3 from Portugal. Jose Lima, Salvador Sobral, and Jose Madeira.
So the 2 Jose's are the rugby players.
Correct, Phil.
Yes.
They
Done,
play
Phil.
for Narbonne and Grenoble. Got 2 more
Obviously.
now. Russia, and 2 of these are rugby players.
3 from Russia. Nicolas Namanya, Artemi Gallo, and Dima Bilan.
Normania is a rugby player.
Yep.
He is at Carcassonne.
Carcassonne.
Tom Brady had 1 season there.
Yeah, didn't like it.
Did not like it. I think they're making a push for promotion at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's another team in not even Pro D2, one below Pro D2, which is looking to buy up a lot of Premiership talent. Can't remember the names now, but they are throwing money around looking for disaffected Premiership players.
There might be a few of those.
Yes, there is.
And Carcassonne.
Especially young ones, because if you get them before the age of 20 or 21, I can't remember which age it is, then they can count as GIF quoted players, which is why if London Irish do go pop, Will Joseph and Henry Arundel will be snapped up.
Oh, 100%.
By French teams.
Well, yeah, why not? Because now that Willis is playing in Toulouse and England, why not? That's exactly what you do.
Well, yeah.
He won't be after the World Cup.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's still exceptional circumstances, no?
Not next season. I don't think it's going to count.
That would be interesting to see what they do. We spoke about that before, but I'm not sure they can square the circle with the lower salary cap and retaining people. But that's for another. So, have we got another Russian?
Yeah,
pick?
one more from Sweden, and spot the two of these are rugby players.
And lastly, 3 from Sweden. Måns Zelmerlöw, Alfred Nordgren, and Theodor Karlsson.
Norgan.
His accents are exceptional.
They are, aren't
Norgan plays rugby for Malmo.
Oh, never mind.
And Theodor Karlsson plays for Stockholm Exiles Rugby Club.
This was just a ruse for Gavin to show off how good his language skills are. I know what he's like.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are 15 seconds left on this audio, and I don't know what he says. Should we have a listen?
Yes, please.
So, let's see who among you can get the 12 points, or indeed will receive the dreaded 0 points. Let the boys play, and in this case, maybe let them sing too.
Oh,
Allons-y.
fantastic.
Oh, bless him. And Gavin, if I had to pick anyone from our wider circle of EggChasers listeners and just the EggChasers family, then Gavin would who I would put forward to represent us in any singing competition.
Exactly right.
And I'm also certain that he will not be listening this week because of the Leinster result. So he'll be broken-hearted. He won't bring himself to listen to a podcast, I'm afraid.
Again, it's all on what happens next weekend. He won't care about today.
True. Yeah. Well, Tim,
but you're right. The pressure is heaped on big time.
Tim, you can't actually see me because you're in your shipping container, but I'm very disappointed that JB has not commented on my outfit today because I'm dressed up like a famous Munsterman.
Yes, Phil looks like he's about to abuse Billy Vanapola.
I'm wearing a red rugby top, chino shorts, and boat shoes.
What was that psychopath
Phil.
doing? What was the idea of that absolute lunatic? He was going to run on the field to tell what? Billy V about LGBT rights or something? LGBTQ rights.
Who knows? What?
It's a good costume, Phil. It's almost as good as when JB went on a stag do as Alan Quinlan.
Yes, that was proper niche.
That was good. Paul O'Connell, friend of the pod, Barbarian Bryn Williams, is Paul O'Connell. And
hey, talking about barbarians, though, are we not playing a barbarian-style game next week?
We are.
If I get there and they're saying that we're playing children's rules, I'm not setting foot on that field.
July the 1st, they come in. You're all right.
Yeah, good. So this could be our last rugby game before it's banned.
Last ever real rugby game.
And I went to a club dinner last night.
How was that?
It was absolutely superb. So it's so sad, you know. Everything it makes you so sad and so angry simultaneously. Having a great night, and we're talking about what's going to happen next year with the coaches, and everyone's talking about how this new, whoever the coaches that we get, how they can progress the team, this and the other. I was like, just stop a minute. We don't know if after 2 games there's even going to be a game. Like the belly tackle. How do we coach this? What are we doing? And then have you seen the RFU campaign for coaching tackle champions?
Yeah.
One of my favourite things ever. One of my favourite things. Who on earth is signing up to be a tackle champion? And do we have to take them seriously? I suppose that you do.
If you want to play the game, you're going to have to tackle...
Well, no one wants to play this game, and that's the point, isn't it? That's why I'm not playing. I don't want to play this child's game. Science-led child's game.
Are they going to have enough numbers, or enough of the Top H first team returning next season?
Oh, they'll have a first team. I mean, the question is, what happens to the third team?
I mean, what I'm saying is, how many are actually dropping out in reality now?
Of the first team, a lot. Just going. And I think it gets much worse when we try and play these rules. I think it's substantially worse, actually. If you're part committed and you played rugby before, and then the first tackle you make is a penalty and it's just a nightmare, it's just going to be a terrible game. It's going to be a terrible game.
I'm just as worried about the referees because I think there've been a load of people who just will.
Mike Bebbins could do it. Oh no, oh no,
who will have a miserable time trying to enforce something with very little guidance, and
the frustration level is going to be through the roof.
The RFU doing what was done to Carl Dixon and just leaving them to hang out to dry.
And they 100% will. They 100% will. They do. I don't think they treat refs particularly well anyhow. But yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. And the ref pool at the moment is shrinking. You know, the fact that we've got enough refs to go around is quite something.
Well, if no one plays, you don't need any refs.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that's probably the plan. I will say this though: last year, loads of people were whinging about refs. I thought the refs at level 7 in Manchester were superb, really, really good. Maybe we had one bad or one iffy performance, but generally speaking, they are pretty good. There's just not enough of them
because they're people who care about the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the most important jobs.
Right. Well, I guess that's everything wrapped up, isn't it? I mean, we've not really previewed the game other than say the stands will be empty. Does anyone want to?
No, there's a game next week.
Oh, of course,
where the stands will be full.
Yes,
probably. Although the top tier in the Aviva was empty this week, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that's because they weren't playing La Rochelle, and La Rochelle need to travel. So where is this? Is this in Dublin again?
I think it is in Dublin. Yeah,
they just want to hand Leinster any trophy that they can. Any trophy that they can. So back to Dublin again. I feel bored of Dublin. I feel like every big game is now in Dublin. The semi-final, the URC final.
Well, URC final's not. It's in Cape Town.
What a shame! What a shame. So anyway, Leinster have got their home final to lift it for their 5th star. It shouldn't be there, should it? It just isn't. It feels like if
it's
Leinster
on rotation all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, but I feel like if Leinster get there, and I know there's a load of planning for the final, so it's not exactly fair to say move it last minute. But if Leinster get there, I feel that you want to be picking up your 5th star in Edinburgh or London or Paris or somewhere cool, not in your home stadium.
Or Cape Town.
Or Cape Town, yeah.
Cape Town would be cool.
Cape Town would be cool. Yeah, so I don't really like it in Dublin. Okay, long and short of it is, La Rochelle, crush them.
What adjective did you use to describe what Toulouse were going to do to Leinster?
Grind them to dust.
Okay. So is a crushing a bigger margin of victory than grinding to dust?
It's a lesser margin of victory. I mean, that Toulouse victory actually for Leinster was a real wake-up call to how good they could be and should be consistently, because Toulouse are massive and they're good. And I think the difference between Toulouse and La Rochelle is that sprinkle of stardust which comes from their halfbacks.
Halfbacks and the 15.
Yeah.
Ramos is so important to them.
But, I've just got a feeling that these monsters in the La Rochelle team are going to get over the gain line, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. I don't think you can stop. I mean, you can stop Aldrit, but then can you stop Skelton and everyone else?
The mood in the Leinster camp is going to be so weird this week.
Yeah.
Because they've thrown it. It is directly their fault. It's not, as in the management, whoever, and it's not one individual, but whoever was involved in making that decision, they've cost them a shot at the URC.
Yeah. And
so the mood will just be on the floor.
Yeah, because it'd be one thing if you were just beaten by a better team. But Christ, yeah, they were really good.
Yeah. We gave it all. We put our first team out. We gave it all, and we came off second best.
Yeah, and also we've been in those teams where you just don't lose. You don't lose week in, week out, and then you lose, and it hits you like a train.
Yeah.
So they will be going through that too. I think the O'Gara factor is massive. I think O'Gara knowing Irish rugby as well as he does, and he has a swagger about him too. Like, he is a man of deep and sincere confidence. That is going to make a huge difference. There's nothing humble or falsely modest about him. He knows exactly what he's doing.
So JB's saying La Rochelle.
More of hope than anything else? That's my wish. This isn't like an analytical breakdown of what's going to happen, but my wish is that La Rochelle run all over them and Aldrit has the game of his life. Just that's what I want to happen.
Raymond Rule crashing through.
Yes.
A dozen bodies on his way to the try line.
Exactly. Who's the young fly half there that I like?
Hastoy.
Hastori, yeah. Love him.
And Buggerit, the hooker, I really like.
He's class, isn't he?
He is class. And Kerr Barlow is class. They've got a good team. They don't have the ultra Stardust ultra high name Stardust that Toulouse do, but they are a quality team and they are enormous.
And they have, I think, So no, that's what I was thinking of. La Rochelle had the two biggest players on the field against Toulouse when they played their final. You know who they are, Antonio and Skelton, right?
Yeah.
Despite having the two biggest players, they were still down on average size in the pack. Which is incredible.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Tim, predictions?
Leinster winning this one.
So if you'd have asked me 2 days ago, I would say Leinster are going to do the double. They're too good not to. Now, I really think... Can you imagine what that Monday, or if they did the debrief today on the Sunday, what that feeling would be like in across the whole squad? That the people that they've trusted through their rugby genius are going to guide them to the double have just let them down. I would have been La Rochelle. I would have been Leinster. Now give me La Rochelle.
Yeah, well said, Phil. This is exactly what's happened.
Although with that said, I hope Leinster do turn it around, but I think they won't. I think they can't. They've thrown it all away. And on that bombshell...
Well done, Phil, well done. Hey, do you want us to talk about CrossFit for 5 minutes?
Are we going to do this on air or off air?
No, let's do
I'll
it.
leave you to it.
No, let's,
right.
Let's do it.
I'll leave you to it.
Cheers, Tim.
There's all sorts of fun going on upstairs.
Oh, right.
And I want to go and get stuck in rather than talk about CrossFit.
Well, you do that, mate.
Okay. See you later, mate.
Nice one.
All right. Do you want to talk about CrossFit quickly?
Go on then.
So, more of an observation about rugby. I'm taking these bloody headphones off now.
Make it quick.
Yeah. So, I'm entering a weightlifting competition, right?
Yes.
So, in order to enter this weightlifting competition, it's all done by body weight, and so you got clean, snatches, yada yada yada. So,
yeah. What are the lifts in it?
deadlift,
Yeah.
squat clean, not
Yeah.
squat clean. Sorry. Clean, snatch, deadlift, bench press, squats.
Okay.
So I think you need to put up 3 scores, but it's a team event too.
Okay.
So it's a team score that matters.
And it's body weight, so it's over.
Yeah, so
the
there's a
score
way to
is
score
over
it.
body weight.
Yeah.
So if you're 100 kg and you lift 120, you would get 20 kg.
Exactly. So now the trade-off is it better for me to lose weight or gain strength? Because you can't do both.
It is tough unless you've got some South African supplemental culture. It is very, very tough to do both.
This is what I wanted to talk about.
And the difficulty is, it's as with everything else, it's the trade-offs.
Yeah.
Like you can do one or the other, unless you are an extreme novice, in which case you can do both for a brief period of time in terms of weightlifting. But generally, mere mortals like you and I cannot do both.
So you and I are strong humans. We're very strong humans compared to the general population, right?
Yes.
So you've got like 100 men in a room, we'd be strong.
If you've just picked 100 men at random, yeah.
Particularly for 40 years old, in my case.
Yes.
So we're going to start the conversation with that. Now, the reason I've started it with that is because I wanted to sort of gain some idea of how strong a Premiership rugby player would be if they entered this competition.
Interesting.
So I called around a few players. I won't mention names. Some of the numbers which have been quoted at me are ludicrous. So the best bench press I found. I only spoke to I only spoke to three lads, and that was enough. They're all forwards.
Yeah, boys like bench pressing as well because it's athletic, 2 it's competitive.
Yeah.
So I bet the best. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not far off 200 kg.
The best one I found was 198.
Yeah,
198.
that is ludicrous.
198.
Who can you tell who that?
I'll tell you who it is. I don't think.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think they'd want that. I mean, I don't think they'd care that much. To be honest,
It's likely to be a front row because you need big body weight and you need relatively short levers and a big chest.
Well, this is another front rower.
Yeah.
Right? Currently, 160 bench,
Yeah.
280 squats,
280 squat, nice.
nice, 360 deadlift.
360 deadlift.
Ooh.
I know Petrus Duplessis, Premiership winner, Champions Cup winner. He's recently let go as the Australian forwards coach or
That's
scrum
right, yeah.
coach when Eddie Jones came in. But I played with him for a few years. He was squatting over 300 when he was at Sedge.
Oh my
which
word!
is, I mean, he was about 130 kg, but he very, very strong boy.
That is
Very strong boy.
insane. So, with CrossFit, right, as you get better, like I say, when you're untrained, you get good at everything.
You can get better at everything really easily.
Yeah,
because you've done
simultaneously.
Nothing. Yeah.
But when you get to a certain point, you have to trade off, right?
Yes.
So, do I want to be better at running? Do I want to be better at lifting? What do I want to do?
Or do you, like on lifting? Do you want to be better at bodyweight calisthenics stuff?
Yep.
Do you want to be better at pure Olympic lifts? Like you can't do it all.
Yeah. So it just made me think. So, like those numbers on the squat, bench press, and deadlift. Then, like, how do you do that and also run for 80 minutes to the intensity that they run at and generate the power? That's why. So, I've come to the conclusion now that they all must be on steroids. There's just no. You're talking about people. If you want to impress people and make people watch the game, you need to communicate what unbelievable athletes that these guys are.
Yeah.
I mean, even as a rugby watcher myself of, quite some time and quite some knowledge, I had no idea that those were strength numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to be talking about these things because that is what you're watching is astonishing.
Yeah. They need to do, be it a draft or a combine, not a draft. No, they need to do a draft as well, but they need to do a combine or some form of rugby league used to at one point in the year they would do the sprint at the start of the season.
Just a standardised pre-season fitness test.
Yeah, a series of tests and make the data available.
Yeah,
because you want to see it. Like people like us would absolutely love
so
that
nosy.
kind of stuff.
Oh, nice.
And it would also, I bet it would be a little bit misleading as well. As in, like, I bet there's some forwards. Say, here's a great example: Max Laheath.
Yeah,
I bet name the lift, he could lift more than, say, Dan Cole.
Yes.
That doesn't mean he's a better tight head prop than Dan Cole.
It does not. It most certainly does not. And I put money on Max Heath not being as good at tight head prop as Dan Cole. But I wonder what the test would be, though. So, is it a 2 kilometre row? Is it just pure strength?
Well, it's interesting because you look at the combine for NFL, and NFL is obviously a different game. It's all like a few seconds agility and explosivity. There's nothing more than a few seconds. Maybe the longest test is the bench press. You've got to do 100 kg, 220 pound bench press.
50 reps of that.
The record is like 49 or 50 reps. But even, who was I looking up the other day? JJ Watt.
Yeah.
I think he did 36 or 30, something like that, which at that weight is just, it's absolutely insane.
Isn't it? I mean, they are not natural athletes.
Oh,
I don't want to see natural athletes. Newsflash. Not interested. But the fact that we are, I mean, I do, we were saying this before the podcast, when you hear these numbers, I just think rugby can't be a clean sport. But you think it is.
I don't think, categorically do not think it's entirely clean. But I think there's very little that goes on at the top level. I suspect if you were to start testing some of the elite schools across the world, in Ireland, in the UK, in France, in South Africa, in Australia or New Zealand, I'm absolutely certain that there is significant usage of performance enhancements. But there is, like, I don't know much about performance enhancing drugs, but if you just look at the long-term benefits of, say, vitamin S steroids, like it's massive. Like Justin Gatlin was running sub 10 seconds until he was like 38. Yeah,
people don't realise this. It doesn't leave you.
Yeah, well, you've built that muscle.
Yeah,
you've built those additional fibres, and building muscle is really, really hard. It's really hard. Like you say to anyone, if you want to go to the gym and start building muscle, like, don't worry about getting too big. It's really.
Yeah, when women say, I don't want to get stacked, trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's not happening.
The last thing that women should ever worry about is getting too big. because they have far less testosterone anyway.
Yeah.
And it's even if you've got testosterone, it's really hard.
Yeah.
But a few years of it, once you've got it and you just maintaining it, is relatively easy with decent diet and good strength training. That is easy.
I'm certain that if they're doing it, schoolboy level.
I'm certain.
Sure it's rife.
I'm absolutely certain it's rife.
I'd love to test all the private schools in the UK.
Well, no, I thought you'd just test them just to know, not test them to ban them.
Oh no, not to. No, I'd be very secret. I'd be hushing everything up, sweeping it underneath the carpet.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it just shows they're taking it seriously.
Well, and that there's this like we spoke about before when we were speaking to Jim Hamilton a while ago. You talk about the trade-offs, and like the trade-offs in terms of health, and there is like not wanting to go down that kind of concussion or like I've got long-term ankle injury thanks to rugby, but there is a trade-off when you're 18 years old. If someone says, "Take this, whatever it is, twice a week or whatever for the next 6 months, train like a demon, eat as much as you can, and much protein and carbs, and eat clean." And you've got a significantly better shot of making it as a pro. There are so many people who would take that bet.
Yeah, 100%.
So many people, and it's the two most obvious ones are WWE wrestlers.
Yeah,
who like basically you have to be on gear to get into that.
Yeah,
and to the point where you're on so much gear for a long period of time and taking headshots that your survival rate is not going to be great.
It's not. But what a life!
You
sign me up.
There might be other stuff as well. There might be other complementary or not so complementary
life on the road,
drugs or party things. Life on the road, and the other one is world's strongest man. Like you have to be. Unless
you have to be unhinged to do that.
Yeah, you have to be above 150 kilos. There is a few like Mariusz Pudzianowski and the Ukrainian fellow who won it recently, who are so explosive at they're just under 150 kg.
Do you think they're testing much?
But
World's Strongest Man?
You basically have to be on so much gear that you are going to die young. But to get a shot at the top, people are willing to take that.
Men particularly don't really care as long as they've got a cause.
Yeah,
they're not really that bothered. But like, going back to like, how do you make it in rugby? One of the things the private schools do is they set they tell you how to make it. Right? They're very clear with how you make it. Here's the coaching. Here's what a rugby player looks like. Here's how serious you need to be. This is what a gym looks like. Go and do some cleans. All that stuff. Right? If you're in like the local state school and you're on your local club, you might know how to pass a ball. You have no idea what the expectations are.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you were telling a young man now you want to make it in rugby, you need to be a certain size and weight. Take this. I mean, I'm sure it goes on. I am certain.
100%.
Some of the guys that these private schools are churning out now are just so enormous. And whether they're doing it secretly away from... I mean, I don't know how they get... They must be doing it secretly away from the school.
Yeah, I would think
Very
so.
hush-hush.
I would think so. Yeah. But people will drive for it. I'm absolutely 100% certain that goes on. I would be surprised if at a higher level it goes on in any like people might. The one thing I would say is people might, if they're injured for 6 months, they might try and use that window to come back stronger or fitter.
You might. Okay, so let's just play the trade-off game here, right? You're injured for 6 months. You might not come back the same player, and you've got 6 months left on your contract. Once that contract runs out, it might be the difference between the current 200k deal that you're on and then the new 80k deal that someone's going to offer you, because it is a results-based game. And if you're in a position like back row, you might not even get a contract because there's so many kids that can play back row. And if you're not a world-class operator, I mean, there's not really many jobs, even if Ben Curry came on the market. He's looking at a pay cut.
Yeah, or certainly he's moving out of England.
Yeah.
He's got to go to France.
Yeah.
But there's only so many spots in France.
So, in that situation, if you thought you might lose your job if you don't come back bigger and stronger, what's a 2-year ban? It makes no difference. You either drop out of the game because your contract is going to be rubbish, or you just get on some gear and come back stronger.
No, it definitely happens. I just think it's probably it's like a pyramid. It more happens lower down. More happens in junior rugby, and definitely more. But lower down, it is more the guys who want to look good in a tight t-shirt, going to the beach, Yada, yada, yada.
100%. Have you come across a personal trainer called James something on... James Smith, I want to say his name is.
Blondie hair.
Yeah.
Guy. Yeah,
And he
like kind of
talks a-
straight talking.
That's
guy.
it, yeah.
I'm kind of loosely aware of him.
Weirdly,
but not
I
really.
met him in Mojo's. I didn't know who he was.
Really?
Yeah, we had a few drinks. But I didn't know. I had no idea who he was. No idea. Only
Did he come
retrospectively...
up to say, JB from EggChasers podcast?
No, we just started chatting. He was with a guy who plays rugby for a team in the Midlands who I've played against, whose name escapes me. Anyway, he says on his videos about supplying performance-enhancing drugs to lower league teams, but most of it was like clenbuterol, which is that a performance enhancer? Don't think it is, really.
I have no idea. I don't even know.
Oh, it's not a diuretic as such, but it makes you leaner.
Like a fat burner.
Fat burner, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that he was pushing, but he's quite open about it. It's on his videos. Anyway, that was a nice little
little interlude. Yeah.
CrossFit diversion chat.
CrossFit/rugby. But so when's your comp?
Well, I've got some other exciting CrossFit news as well. So my comp's in 8 weeks, and in a few weeks' time, I hope to be able to confirm a very exciting rugby/CrossFit crossover.
Wow.
With hopefully a new sponsor, which would be great.
Wow. Very good.
Yeah, right. I think we'll leave it there. So,
What a tease.
what a tease. You can find us on Patreon. Please sign up to Patreon. Pays for everything. You can find us on Twitter, if we ever tweet, which we don't. Or you can email us, contact eggchasers@gmail. And that's it, really. There's no... Just keep downloading and telling people and whatnot. Right, brilliant. See you later. Phil.
Bye.